Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to create customs declarations in CDS via IPS by first importing mail items into IPS which include customs information and then using an interface to export the customs information to CDS. A quick note before we start. Creating declarations in CDS using this indirect method is less reliable and more difficult to troubleshoot than creating them directly in CDS with the CDS API due to the extra IPS step. We recommend creating declarations directly wherever possible for clearer feedback and simpler monitoring. If you do want to use this feature, you will need to upgrade to IPS version 2019 package 12 or above. You can watch our video about creating declarations with the CDS API if you want more information about this. In the video, I'm going to show you two different ways to import the mail items into IPS, with the IPS import function and with the IPS API. I'm also going to show you how to set up the interface between IPS and CDS. The steps I'm going to show you assume you have set up an instance of CDS or CDS.post and an instance of IPS or IPS.post. They also assume you've configured the IPS API and the CDS API. If you need more information about installing and configuring these components, you can find details in the product documentation. Creating customs declarations in CDS via IPS is a two-step process, with an interface to inject data into IPS and an interface out of IPS to inject data into CDS. We will work backwards from CDS, creating the interface from IPS to CDS first. This is what will trigger the creation of a declaration in CDS after importing a mail item into IPS with associated customs information. We need to create an export interface in IPS for CDS declarations using a custom assembly, as shown here. We also need to tell IPS where to find the CDS API and provide a token for authentication. We do this in National Parameters by clicking this tab. Here we will enter the endpoint of the CDS API, and here the CDS API security token, which we generate in the Manage Organization Preferences window in CDS. You can find these configuration steps in the CDS Installation and Configuration Guide. I'm going to import two outbound mail items into IPS, the first with an import interface and the second with the IPS API. We will then view the mail items in IPS and then their associated declarations in CDS. For our first mail item, we need to configure a mail item import interface in IPS. We're going to use the interface to pick up this XML import file, which includes the CDS declaration information in this node here. Here's an interface I created earlier. I'm going to run the interface manually with this option, but the interface is configured to run on a regular schedule, so if I didn't run it now, this and all other import files will be picked up according to the schedule. Let's have a look for our mail item using the IPS track and trace function. I'll search for the mail item using its ID. We can see that IPS has imported it. The next step is to run the export interface to CDS. Again, I'm running it manually for the purposes of this example, but this whole process can be automated by setting a regular schedule. We can see the declaration has been imported for the same mail item ID into CDS. For our second mail item, we will send a mail item import call to the IPS API. I'm using a REST call for this with a post method, the URL and the IPS API token. As you can see, the body of this call also includes customs information. When I send the call, you can see a 200 response returned along with the body of the response. You can find the example I used in the description below, along with an XML example to use for SOAP calls. Examples are also available in the IPS API reference documentation. If we now search for this mail item, we can see it's also been imported into IPS. We'll now run the CDS export interface again. Searching for the mail item in CDS shows it has also been imported. Thank you for watching this video where we learnt how to generate CDS declarations by importing mail items into IPS. You can find all the information you need to get started with this feature in the description below and the product documentation.